All right, want to say welcome to one and all to a historical edition of Bald Head and the Dread. I am both humbled and honored to have these special guests with us, the brilliant Dejazmatch Kwasi, the brilliant Dr. K. Adamawi Knife, the brilliant Honorable Priest Isaac, and the Honorable Priest Kailash. We give thanks for everyone being here. Far right, big up yourself. We're gonna get right into the reason. Anyone feel free who wants to start. But the first question we want to, first topic we want to discuss is Haile Selassie. I made a powerful historical speech to the UN, and it seems that the topics that he covered during that speech are even more relevant today in these modern times, especially on the issue of human rights violation. So, anyone feel free who wants to start to speak about that. Take the stage.
Yes. All right. So, give us this ancient. See, that is something I have particular interest in because you know that every time people find themselves in a crisis situation, them looking at models for solution. You know, and I remember clearly last year making some sound, especially to Africa, which is manifesting today that all Africa is looking outside itself for solutions when all Africa need is within itself. You know, and we'll see where a lot of those young youths now who would have been younger youths when leaders of the OAU in the 1960s. You can see how some of the principles and ideas from that time is being manifested by some of these youths in them current governance in Africa when I take over them country. But I think most important though to why is the speech in signatory where MCM must focus on two key elements, which is disarmament, and we are talking about nuclear disarmament at the time, but more importantly, equity and equal rights among men throughout earth. And you see that everything today that is being advanced by those global organizations like the United Nations, that are things like the Sustainable Development Goals, you know, or them looking at environmental and social governance as a benchmark for good governance practices. Those they can see still reflecting all of these things about zero hunger, zero poverty, equality amongst gender, you know, access to sanitation, access to water, all the things we're speaking about in terms of how nations were dealing with nations in an inequitable manner need to be. Yeah, you need to adjust those. And in admission, him warn the UN as well that if the United Nations fail to live up to those covenants that them sign within the United Nations that's supposed to support equity and equality amongst people throughout earth, it is going to become irrelevant and find itself in danger, which is what you see happening now. Because the United Nations have not, this is not no romanticism, because we're not no Roman, you know. But I show you how from the 1960s, these were seen as challenges that needed to be addressed. And because I failed to act then, just as how they was failed to act in 1936, where the League of Nations became redundant, United Nations find itself in a lot of being challenged a lot. You can see things were going on in some other countries like Israel and Palestine. People talking about what's happening.
Far right. Anyone else want to jump in? Why knife connection come back?
Sorry, I don't know if it's mine. That's my internet just now.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry about that. So, all right. So, let's wrap this quickly. So, we look at what's happening amongst those nations in the earth and people talking about wars, etc. Just go forward to those speech. Because I started a speech by saying that man have to move past even the ideology of nations. Because they're becoming a new race where you know, say, but your commitment is to the development of all humankind. Those are the things that they are promoting now at these global levels in the global discussions. Of course, and incorporate the whole idea of the environment. So I find that Haile Selassie speech in 1963 is something that we need to revisit, you know, and just be reminded of some of these things that you know are very important if any nation is going to move forward. And the globe as well.
Anyone else want to jump in?
Rastafari, blessed love again, So let me just give thanks for being here, give thanks for each and everyone on the panel, very esteemed panel, as you said, give thanks for I never knew TV. Well, nobody can say they never knew right now, by now everybody knows what's going on, but still give thanks for I never knew TV. But we know now. We know now for sure. I give thanks for all the works that the brothers have been doing, and others who I'm sure are behind the scenes. I'm sure they're not just brothers but sisters. So just give thanks for all those who are contributing to the mission that has been taking place, my Lord and Majesty. And give thanks to the full panelists. Give thanks, Dr. Kadamawe Knife. It's an honor, my Lord, to be on the same panel even with DI. The first time I even heard of DI, it's my esteemed brethren, the Honorable Priest Kailash, who even told me of DI, but then that's years ago. And then after coming across who DI is, and I would have taken in a lot of your information to and works and outlooks. I'm very thankful to even being with DI, and of course give thanks to the Lion voice. I see the Lion getting a lot of voice, a bigger voice, my Lord. So it's just a joy as well to even be with DI and them. And of course, my Lord Honorable Priest Kailash, give thanks for and I coming together on this platform again to proclaim the words of right. So just an honor and blessing to the congregation. Since we're speaking of, the speech 1963, in all reality, I don't think everyone know the speech by heart. So I just want to highlight a few paragraphs of it. I know most ones can relate to it, of course, in the song War that Bob Marley would have sung. And we do give thanks for the ancestor for even, that works, which would have at least promoted the very important speech, even some aspect of it, until the philosophy that one race superior and the other inferior is finally destroyed, etc. Most people know that. And that's just one aspect of the speech given in 1963. But as Dr. Knife was highlighting, really, the whole aspect of that speech is what we see playing out today. A lot of what the world has as principles, as some brethren that we have on Rasta Roundtable said. Interestingly, when Haile Selassie gave the speech to the League of Nations, not the UN now, but the League of Nations in 36, he actually brought morality to the world stage. And that's a very deep concept. Of course, one's already had, rules and laws and bylaws. But when the emperor really came to the forefront with that level of diplomacy, advocating for collective security, it was as if morality entered the world stage. And it's a deep concept when you look at it. So I'm saying that to even bring it forward to the speech in 1963, which would jump from 1963 to the time that we are living in now. When you hear one speaking about disarmament, as Dr. Knife would have just mentioned, all of this comes directly from the principles of Haile Selassie, and even this address that was given in 1963. Let me just read here, and my quote from the King's speech. Today I stand before the global organization that has succeeded because of the abandoned facet left by its discredited predecessor. The principle of collective security that I invoked in Geneva in vain is protected in this body. Here, listen to this, here in this assembly rests the best, perhaps the last hope for the peaceful survival of mankind. In 1936, I declared that it was not the League alliance that was at stake, but international morality. promises, I said then, they are of little value if you lack the will to maintain them. And again, anyone could do their own research and go through the speech itself. In conclusion, for this aspect, what we need to do, even for the family listening and watching, a lot of His Majesty's political or Ethiopia's diplomatic stance at that time, especially as Rastafari, sometimes we're so deep in the religion and the theology, we overlook the diplomacy of Ethiopia at the time. Many ones are not even aware that Israel backed Mengistu, so-called Israel, the Israeli, backed Mengistu and the Derg when they in their hand of trying to take over Ethiopia, because Haile Selassie was totally against the so-called Falashas, which are the better Israel people, leaving Ethiopia to go to the place that they call Israel. Now, a lot of people are not aware of that. And the Zionists had this plot to take the better Israel people out of Ethiopia in the same way they want to take the Lemba people out of South Africa too, and tell them, come with us, so that they can suck on their pure blood. But Haile Selassie was totally against it. Haile Selassie fought strong against Zionism. But when Mengistu and these ones came in, they got the opening, and that's where you had Operation Moses and Operation, I think it's Solomon and these things. But I will yield for that moment and give thanks again. Selassie Jah, Rastafari.
Honorable Kailash.
I look silverish, and Dejazmatch Kwasi, I think that I could go ahead before I will come in after.
Yes, all right. Greetings. First and foremost, let me just greet everyone in that divine name of His Imperial Majesty, Emperor Haile Selassie I, and say glory and honor in the name of His chosen Queen Empress Waziri Menen. It's a great honor to sit on this esteemed panel with ones that I have been following their journey and being inspired by their journey. And I think there's no better time for this panel than right now, because World War III has started. And for those who are looking at this from a prophetic angle, when you talk about His Imperial Majesty, Lion of the tribe of Judah, on the throne of David, going to international body, he's the highest law according to the church, also being the head of the Orthodox Church, highest legal authority on earth, you can call it that. So, when he's coming to the world body, it has additional weight. And this speech is really the chance. This is the last chance. This is laying out the stakes for mankind. The commandment was to beat the spear into plowshare, because he talks about disarmament and he talks about the equality of man. So this is the highest legal authority coming to the world. And this is also the speech where he talks about peace is not a is. It's a becoming. That peace is a series of decisions and events. So he's coming to the earth now to establish this peace on earth, that man has chased this elusive peace. He talks about what nuclear war could do. Nuclear energy could accomplish for man. This has never before been at the hands of man. These tools, all of the tools for the manifestation of Eden, or that heaven on earth, exists currently for man to harness. He also talks about the weapons, if the amount of money spent on armaments. This was a call, this was an appeal to the Illuminati, to all of the secret society, to the elites, to the royals. This was an appeal to them. We know that what the item I deal with, it burn a fire upon Portugal and South Africa directly. But this was an appeal for them to do the right thing. And this is why this is such a dangerous time for us, because a lot of time people assume the leaders of today don't know what they're doing, or that they're inept, or that they're stupid. I wouldn't take that. You have to realize these are people in rebellion against what His Majesty has laid out. So it's a very dangerous time for us. And one of the things I want to touch on this panel is some of the solutions. I don't want us just to come and talk about, because we have to prepare the people. I think we have a job to do as ones who studies Majesty, who, hear what he had to say about agriculture being the prerequisite for industrialization, all of the, he gave us the blueprint to establish a new world order. Not the new world order of Babylon, which is an evil order, but an order where all of the nations can live in harmony. He gave us the layout. So this speech is all about that. I want to reason about it, but I am long-winded, and that is why I'm going to just pause right there, so that my family can come in, and then I'll come forward again.
Haile.
I give thanks for life and a mighty life giver, and give thanks for, all our elders that's here with us, and our young brethren and them that's here with us also. And one of the things that's lacking within our community is just humility to accept mentorship, and just to accept leadership. And even in the emperor's time, the emperor was offering that level of leadership to the world. And even in the present time that we are living right now, it is not that I would have loved to pass whatever I learn on to someone. And I'm sure that the professor would love to do the same. And, he's doing it for the government of Jamaica, setting up the whole economic infrastructure for the country. It is that, are the people themselves, our young people, are they oriented in a way whereby they could just gravitate, to that, the works and the words of love of Rastafari. As Rastafari in every essence is like a real title. So when the emperor, I'll just go to the conclusion of the speech, right? And he said, well, we must become something we have never been, and for which our education and experience and environment have poorly prepared us for. We must be bigger than we've ever been, bravest, bigger in spirit, and clearer in perspective. We must be members of a new race, overcoming small prejudices because of our ultimate loyalty, not to stocks, but to our fellow men within the human community. So sometimes I will tell my fellow Rastafari brethren and them that, and not really on them thing like as if it's just a Rasta thing, and we're just on a Rasta thing. It is critical that we are on a humanity level, that we visualize and we operate on a humanity level, a level without boundaries, a level without no separation, to actually be able to manifest that level of purity that the emperor himself, the divine, God himself came and speak to these people with. And if it is that we really have to prepare ourselves, as he said, you have to remove yourself from from petty prejudices, So it is even firstly purging ourselves of our own inferiority complex to self. Because I remember telling, JR, I won't call you the bald head, brother, because you're a Rasta man, right? And I remember telling him, when I personally stopped treating white people better than black people, I was still a Rastafari. I had locked everything already, and I had beard, and I was still treating white people better than black people as a Rastafari. So when we say overcome petty prejudices, it is not only something extrinsic, it is also intrinsic. How is it that we as a people could stop seeing ourselves inferior, and then see ourselves as equals to everyone else on the world stage, and to basically embrace humanity? In my field of healing, I I had to develop compassion. You know, compassion was something that just comes naturally with healing. You have to feel, you know, compassion no matter what someone is or what they do. You know, when another one might say fire burn, you know, I am the man that most times would have to deal with the same set of people that everyone would be burning fire on. You know, so I think that it is critical that when we visualize the work that is to be done, it is not solely just a work that focus upon us and even people that look like us, but it is appealing to the goodness and the God spirit that lies within humanity, you know, and seeing how is it that we could connect, right, ourselves forward to the navel string of our Creator, that level of goodness and love.
And I love how they mentioned the human aspect of the whole thing too, because on a real levels, when I really sit down and meditate the speech in 1963, it really ironic to I say at the same year the OAU farm, which was earlier in the same year. So it's like it really implied this to most ones and ones that leading by example is very important, because you lead by example. The formation of OAU in a May, which is that is leading towards African unity, and then when dimensional the conclusion of the speech now, which is becoming members of a new race. Okay, that and I become a member of a new race without first setting unification within the presence of Africans. That is the starting point of it. So I feel like when it comes to the sense of Haile Selassie and practicality and leading by example is one thing where most ones and ones will overstand, say, along the journey of Haile Selassie, as they keep on evolve during different stages of Ethiopia, during different stages of how the world is reacting towards the truths and rights. You will find, say, is an exemplary type of thing they set, which is a model left to be followed by ones and ones. By doing, and once you do, then you can give that direction. But in the context of human rights violation that are taking place today, I really want to ask them how we see that fit into the whole puzzle of the human rights violation taking place today. It's still connected towards the speech and the warning that they give. And I feel like if the world did truly listen, then the world wouldn't really in this situation where it's in right now. So I really would like them to shine some light on that portion of the thing, too, you know?
All right, watch out, brother. You see, it's important when you just highlight about what was happening with the OAU, because I remember that the part that people know the most, which when Haile Selassie said, until the philosophy. Just before that, it states, and I ask my brother for read it, because I think it's very important for people to listen that full part of that speech, because the Bob Marley song have about 2 or 3 of the elements that were captured in the speech as instructions. So I think people need to hear it. But it was that, as I said, clearly say that this is what African nations have to say unto the world. So that speech was not a speech of Haile Selassie, it was a speech of the OAU to the rest of the world. You know, very, very important. And it was in 1963, which was at the heart of the civil rights movement. And that was not just a movement in the United States. It was being done in the United States, but that was about what was happening within mankind at the time, which much hasn't changed. And what they're doing now, they're trying to use this idea of a plural society to try to suggest, say, that is equal rights. But it's more about equity, you know? But those things still very, very, very important. So the ideas of how you mainstream, because that's the language I'm used in the research discipline, you know. We're going to mainstream gender, we're going to mainstream youth, we're going to mainstream climate change. We identify these things as goals. That we need to end poverty, we need to end hunger, and all those things are there. There's the languages that I'm using now. You know? So if you look at any of those documents surrounding from the Millennium Development Goals coming to the SDGs and many other documents before, you will see that the same ideas presented in that speech in 1963 replicated through many of these documents. And I think what is more important as well, though, is the fact that I still say show the ones them that if we do what we're supposed to, which is really implement these things in a meaningful way, what we see manifesting today is going to manifest. You know, I think it's important to actually read it though. That's the audience. Hear it. And I have a book. I have the speeches electronically, you know. So GR, I can just send that today as well and say we can get it out to people. So ones can have it for us to listen to. FMB one you by audio, you know.
Rastafari. I have that part of the speech that I was asking for, because it's, as they say, you know, even before I read that part, it's a lot in the speech, and I always where the conversation is going, because it's more than just the speech now. It's the whole nature of what was taking place around the speech as one's highlight.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it is deep. Even the civil rights, the civil rights era was at its peak at that time. Of course, we all know, even when the emperor came to the United States of America, you know, when he was met by John F. Kennedy, you know, that speech alone, you know, alone has gone down in history. Anyone that has even observed the Honorable Priest Kailash, I know we watched that speech there about 1,000,000 times. If you just observe how the emperor would have received the words of Kennedy, you could see it's from his heart when he said, you know, Mr. President, what is it again? I can't remember now. Your speech has truly touched us. But the thing is, President Kennedy highlighted, you know, just the reality of how the emperor in a very short time, you know, would have brought independence. That's what Kennedy says in it, that the emperor in a short time would have brought independence to dozens of African countries and Asian countries. This is what Kennedy was saying. He highlighted Haile Selassie as like, and I'm just paraphrasing here, as like, if not the main revolutionary fighter in the world, but definitely up there amongst them. And if you observe this, the interview that was done with Meet the Press in that same visit in 1963, one of the reporters asked the emperor about the whole aspect of assisting African states that are still under the colonial grip, when in the whole aspect of arming them and assisting them militarily. And the emperor, in his answer, as always, with all diplomacy, showed that, well, you understand, it's peace we're dealing with, and we prefer to speak the thing out. But if we have to, well, that's an option that is on the table. And if you listen to the interview, you'd see how the emperor would have put it across in his very diplomatic way. So if you understand the energy at that time, it was about human rights, you know, bringing an end to colonialism, bringing an end to slavery. And then Kennedy himself was assassinated just a few weeks after Haile Selassie left, and Haile Selassie had to return for his funeral. But yeah, I could go on and on with that. Let me just read the part that the professor asked of. And it says here, on the issue of racial discrimination. So this part of the speech, racial discrimination, the Addis Ababa conference taught those who will learn this additional lesson until the philosophy that sustains a superior, I don't know if this is a interesting translation, a superior and inferior race is finally and permanently discredited and abandoned, until there are no first and second class citizens of any nation, until the color of a man's skin is no more important than the color of his eyes, until basic human rights are equally guaranteed to all, regardless to race, that until that day, the dream of lasting peace and world citizenship and the rule of international morality will remain a fleeting illusion, haunted but never achieved, and until the ignoble and unhappy regimes that keep our brothers in Angola, in Mozambique, and South Africa, and in subhuman servitude have been shut down and destroyed, until intolerance and prejudice and malicious and inhuman selfishness have been replaced by understanding, tolerance, and goodwill, until all Africans stand up and speak like free human beings, equal in the eyes of all men, as they are in the eyes of heaven. Until that day, the African continent will not know peace. And just the last line, Africans will fight if required, and we know that we will win, since we trust in the victory of good over evil. And I will just leave it at that, and I will leave my comments at that until you come around again. Blessed love.
I want to jump in here. This speech was given, actually His Majesty was bringing the OAU Charter to deposit it with the United Nations. That was part of the whole ceremony. This is a very famous event. The second largest ticker tape parade in New York City history occurred, with His Majesty famously getting out of his vehicle and walking the last way to the UN headquarters. Ticker tape parade. The streets were lined. This was a major event, not just in America, but the world over. And when you talk about that section that he just read, what is he talking about until the philosophy? What philosophy are we talking about? He's talking about white supremacy. And he's very careful to outline that until the unhappy and ignoble regimes, you know, and he names some specific white supremacist regimes that were at that time dominating with apartheid regimes, the southern part of the continent, remembering that His Majesty was also arming the resistance. So this is not just words without works. This is a diplomatic push. And this is why at the end he says, we are confident that we will win. We Africans will fight, because he's letting them know that, yes, we are appealing to the goodwill of the nations, but we're not depending on goodwill, or we're not naive. We're willing to fight for our rights. And this same white supremacy is the same beast that is raging right now, you know, with the colonial powers fighting, you know, to maintain their global hegemony against what has been termed the global South. So this is why we are confident that the world is headed toward world war, or is already in world war, as I say, because of the fact that, you know, when a beast is cornered is when it's most dangerous. And this is why His Majesty was coming ahead to warn the people that this is what's on the table, and if you take this direction, this is what's going to happen. We are living in the time where they took the other way. They did not take the off ramp that could have led us into an unparalleled age of prosperity. So we are headed toward you know, what has been termed as apocalypse. All this, you know, you can call it what you want to call it, but the key is that His Imperial Majesty is saying that until these basic, the way that the people of the earth are viewed, until we deal with that, we're always going to have these conflicts. And we're seeing the double standards, you know, when it comes on to the Palestinian cause, to what's happening in Ukraine, you know, where one is deemed a war crime, the other is deemed self-defense. All of these things are happening, you know, in opposition to, again, the off-ramp His Majesty gave the world. So what we really have to understand with this speech is that His Majesty is telling the world, you know, that all of these borders and boundaries that have been set up, this is the members of the new race concept, that until we really look at this as a human race, and human race doesn't mean that it lacks diversity. That doesn't mean that it's an amalgamation and all of this, because if you look, as Autarchii said, we secure the OAU first, we make sure Africa is secure. We are part of the non-aligned movement as well, which was be established a few years later. With the before there was the global South or BRICS, there was a non-aligned nation bloc. So all of these things, to say that we are a global family, that we respect diversity, we respect our brothers, but at the same time, we're not going to divide ourselves by race or these things. We are going to celebrate our culture because that culture diversity makes us strong. But we're not going to discriminate or treat people wrong. And that hasn't happened. And again, we want to touch upon the solution part of it, but that's just the frame where we are,
Honorable Kailash, you want to say something before we go to the next topic?
Take the mic on mute.
Yeah. Okay, I muted myself. Yeah. Well, give thanks. I mean, as we speak of human rights, this is the critical. This is like, the articles of the Declaration of Human Rights. The basic tenets that's supposed to be guaranteeing your sovereignty as a human being. That is supposed to be something that allows us to actually operate within the human family with a level of freedom and a level of sovereignty where you could stand up like a man and just be yourself. That's why I like to look at where we are using the ancient African principles of from center to circumference. As the Honorable said, the emperor began with the OAU in Africa. Yet still, it is a time whereby if we really if we condense it like an atom and squeeze everything together, it will come to you, I and I. How do each individual begin to manifest the words of His Imperial Majesty from center to circumference? Then that in its every essence can begin to vibrate, and transform and begin to move creation. Because most times what happens is that if we recall, as when you look at the video of the trip when Kennedy is actually shaking the emperor hands and how he bows, and then he said in a decade he single-handedly single-handedly, so which is critical, so that is the title where the emperor received the Prince of Peace. He single-handedly, that's in a decade, in 10 years, almost what I mean. 10, I mean, it was. I think. I think it was for about 20-something countries, in Africa. And within that same time, on the world tour, when he fly into Egypt and Sudan was at, the wars were fighting. He was just, stopping the wars in Africa. So even when, so it wasn't like when you have the warmongers now, these so-called presidents nowadays just talking. The emperor would jump on the plane and fly to these African countries that were in war, and stop the wars. So it is critical that even as we look at the emperor as a human being, as a person with flesh, with teeth and bone and hair and perspire, then we have to comprehend that when people saw this small statured man, when you listen to the testimonies, they saw something much greater than just a small statured man. That the power, the authority, what exudes through his temple was phenomenal, right? So when this man uttered, his words were not just words; they were like swords. They pierce and they shift and they manifested. So I'm saying this to say that I and I having teeth and bone and tongue and hair and sweat glands and all these different things and urinate and defecate like the emperor, in that human nature, it is critical that work and that work begin from a self perspective. And then even within our own solar system, we might not Because remember, most times as a people, as a society, it is very difficult for I and I just to highlight the greatness of I and I own self. And sometimes a man have to die for. That's why you must practice, just glorifying people. I mean, the works that even the man and them on the panel doing in their own little solar system. That what it takes to do what we have to do, deciding to do it. Because remember, we became Rastafari, which is like a new race, right? And then the professor they decide to be as he is. Remember, the man's a professor at and then going on and do consultation with all the police and them within the Caribbean region and organizing security and cannabis and all different type of thing, choosing to do that with a locks in that race. Yet still, if you had a suit and a tie, that'd be easy, Right now you'd have be vice chancellor, So at the end of the day, we are the new race, we are the people of Rastafari. And allowing ourselves to be able to visualize ourselves as the God, our God self, that having that same divinity and power that His Imperial Majesty has blessed us with, that we could actually move forward and actually continue the work. So when I say from center to circumference, I'm saying that la lucha continua, His Imperial Majesty is within I and I. And though that we might feel that as he say, as the Christians would say, well, Christ built the foundation and we build on it. I and I still building on that foundation, and I just want to shed that light in that aspect to say, well, that I and I then begin to work within I and I own self and begin to manifest, that same speech in the flesh within our own little solar systems, that we could form that macrocosmo that could cause that great shift. When you tell the bomb, when they try to press the button, the nuclear bomb, and then you say, stop! That power just to freeze them. I do believe that, that we have, that level of power that, the emperor actually, not demonstrated, but actually not even illustrated because, showed the world, that great power, that potential, to actually stop and bring peace to the world. My Lord.
And there is something I really say. I really want to ask them. I know it's a topic. This is our next that segue perfectly into the next topic to the spirituality of Rastafari, same speed scene. And I feel like most youths were conflicted. I see a lot of youth conflicted all heap of time, and it's Rastafari really bring them to a glory and a redemption within themselves. Like, so I would have loved for them even share how them even come to sight enough Rastafari up on a level, because I feel like a lot of youths reason with a lot of youths and them type of story there and revelations there towards youths. I feel like it really opened them up to really have a different outlook at life. See me, so I like to know how them come towards Rastafari and how the spirituality of Rastafari really draw them in. Because I think Rastafari is a type of a levity where it more mental, is a mental thing, because like what I mentioned, the powers of Haile Selassie, the speech is itself, you see a sharp man, I bring it forward and so confident, and it are filled with facts too and not just talking. So it is a mental type of stimulation. So I really like to know how the spiritual, on a spiritual side of things now, how them come towards Rastafari, and how that help towards the development, and how we can use the same type of process in itself to see way if you even build up on the thought process and the mentality where most youths have in this time too, Black youths to see African youths,
And Farai, I'm glad I'm glad you went into that. And while you're speaking about that, can you add the ability of Rastafari to transform a person? Because many times we speak about, let's say, Nation of Islam, right? That ability to transform man into his higher self, into a disciplined person, into a principled person, into an ambitious person. But while you are talking, please add how Rastafari has the capability to do so for those who truly tried. I'm not talking about a dread thing, but I'm talking about those who really take up the tribe, that ability to transform the essence of their being into a greater person. While speaking about your experience.
They're upon mute.
What knife? Hold on.
Yes, I hear you.
All right.
Yeah. fundamentally Rastafari is about self-acceptance and self-actualization, You know, it's as when I Bubba Virgin said to I say Rastafari is an awakening and Haile Selassie is a path towards enlightenment. And a lot of youths are being awakened to the consciousness of what being is. You have Rastafari ones who are religious, but Rastafari is not a religion, it's a liberty. So ones will speak about Rastafari through religious books. But the truth still universal. Enough pass to the mountaintop, but once there, the view is still the same. So it's about self-actualization, it's self-acceptance. Now, if one really accepts self, so there's no limitation. Rastafari says some simple things. As a youth, I hear the Rastaman say, Rastafari I believe, Rastafari I know. See, Rastafari I believe, Rastafari I know. You see, a believer accept the information when them get. The persons who know a seek, and them continuously seek, them like a seek, and them always seek more information. And becoming self is a process. All beings in a state of constant becoming. And the more you find self. What Rastafari do is that Rastafari take you beyond the timelines of religion as well. Because once you say Haile Selassie, you have to search through Ethiopia. And the further into Ethiopia you search, you have to find other spaces. So it remove all of those boundaries. So you have to find when you have these youths in this time, whether it's Rastafari or not, they are in the age of mentalism. It's the age of knowing them in their prayer age, which is the same exact symbol the man them use to represent Haile Selassie coronation. There's a symbol for the appearance age, the age of mentalism, the ear age. These youths are youths who are on a part of knowing. And so the way Rastafari live, in terms of man say, all right, they are supposed to sip as idle as they can sip. You have to treat Irish in a particular kind of way. The ethic, the philosophy, the guide liberty of Rastafari is what is being embraced globally. It's not only Rastafari love had those kind of philosophy, and I anchor to in Ethiopia. But you have people in Asia and India who have that liberty for ancient time as well. So, and one said the way the eye tried physically will also impact the Irish as well. So it's the age. It's the age. People have become more accepting of self in many, many places. Even a way which I might not want to accept, but they have become more accepting of self. And Rastafari reminds people, it helps to guide you and ever put you upon that path of self-discovery and self-acceptance, which is really self-actualization.
Selassie. Yeah, man, give thanks. Yeah, give thanks again, for being in this blessed audience here as we, speak as once asking about coming into Rastafari and how Rastafari, if I have the question right, can organize the youths and the generations to come, and basically that's it going forward. You see, and I'm thankful for that aspect. Although I think I had plenty things to say on the other topic with Haile Selassie and the UN speech, man, just listening to the Honorable Priest Kailash and the professor going, I was saying, when I come again, I have some things to put on the table, because that subject by itself is so intense, and I give thanks to them rising it. It deserves a little more, maybe.
Yes.
Not now, but that's a serious topic we just started there a moment ago, I tell you. But give thanks for rising it. But equally important, going forward as far as us as Rastafari. And you see, Rastafari is a very deep thing. We might say it's simple, but it's deep. It's very layered. It's a theology. It's a government. It's a diplomacy. It's industry. It's business. It's spirituality. It's a culture. It's anciency. It has its own historical framework. It's a redemption movement. It is Black power. It's a return to, you know, the original man and woman creational. That's one thing that it's love. You see, so the Rastafari thing is a very deep, deep vibration. And where we need to take this thing, you know, right now, we all as Rastafari, we say Rastafari is here to save the world and all of this thing. Rastafari need some serious leadership. In general, however you want to put it, whether you want to talk of houses and mansions, there's one thing about the houses and mansions. Every house and mansion know what's going on in the other house and mansion. So you can see we're just one big family. Rastafari not just need leadership in general, not only need to accept, because leadership is there too, but the leadership as well need to just continue to lead. Now, all what I'm saying is actually happening as we speak. It may not be as easy to pick up, but this is something that, you see, in the future, we have to look at this thing futuristically. And as much as we talk about a government and all of that, people will get old and pass out, and you know, we don't want to leave other people just talking this talk. And most of us who are here sitting down, I mean, we have our own story to tell. And sometimes dealing with principle and even dealing with brotherhood and sisterhood, sometimes you yourself have to make a decision where you say, well, listen, I seem to have a little different direction here, a different outlook than the rest of the brotherhood. I think I need to go and establish this on my own. Now, you see, that's very serious, you know, because a lot of us, we talk about uniting. We talk about coming together. And many times when we come together, we really can't stick together. And again, the whole aspect of the lack of education and a strong level of ignorance sometimes amongst us, the seriously slow the train. So you see, those of us who have the right mindset, because the mindset is very important. For one reason or the other, whether it's circumstance or whether it's just us want to be ignorant, a lot of us, we haven't caught up to the right mindset. One of the main aspects of our mindset is that subconsciously we love poverty. We do not, whether we know it or not, even if we think we're good at the hustle and we're making a rack or two, we're not really penetrating on the massive goal of rising a kingdom and building an empire. Not just to say it, you know, but to literally implement ways to get this done. That is why, you know, me and most of us sitting down here again, we have decades in this. And I'm sure many of us, we've been to conferences, we've been to meetings, we've been to gatherings, we've tried this and that. This is a new thing, this new organization in Rastafari, all mansions, all houses, elders, this, elders. And Rastafari at this moment still have not, to me, no offense, shown to the world as a nation, a group, or any one of the little groups them by themselves, that, yeah, these people are ready to rule the world. Not doom and gloom, you know. I would hope and pray that we get in there. But still, again, sometimes amongst ourselves, we're not ready to accept even the leadership that we have right now. And you know when leadership is amongst you, because leadership have ideas. Leadership have things that working already. You know, things already in motion and in movement. But again, the mindset. And most of us, we are not and don't really want to be truly business oriented. When I say business oriented, everybody wants to make $1, but most of us, we are afraid of abundance when the earth is created with abundance. Abundance, the earth, the literal planet that we're on, has more than enough for every single thing. Every single thing has more than what it needs on this planet. Whether it's an ant, whether it's a tree, whether it's whatever it needs, whether it's water, whether it's breeze, whether it's oxygen, food, sunshine, everything has everything in abundance, including us. We have been caught up into a capitalistic system that has turned it a certain way, but you can still break out of it with the right mindset. And to me, in conclusion, that is where Rastafari need to start to focus now and get this thing organized in a structural way, in curriculum, curriculi, or syllabus, and all this other books and DVD documentaries, and schools and the full works, healthcare, education system, all sorts of infrastructure, land, international airport. Hey, that's where we have to start the thing, because we're a government. My Lord, the Lion voice continually roar about agriculture. That gone to sleep. Something many of us don't even think about that. Blessed
love. I want to use Iman's story as an illustration how Rastafari can change lives, because I came to the faith as a skeptic. You know, I was born in Jamaica. I grew up in Toronto, Canada, and I went to Howard University, where I was moving around with my cousin, big up Emil, as a Ras. And so, you know, we're moving with my family, and it was just all Ras around you know. So I was at that time at Howard. I tell people I'm a reformed Gallus, because at that time I was studying the woman them, you know, around the campus. You understand? I want to be real with my family. Because at that time we were not exercising the D discipline that we talk about. Because I say purpose over pum pum. That is my talk right now for the younger brethren. But in that time, you know, the first time I saw D discipline exercise was being around these races. And, you know, we would be on campus and the most beautiful women would be there, and we would just be reasoning world history and, you know, going into the minds of people and, you know, seeing the discipline that these brethren had, you know. And at first I didn't even understand it, you know. I thought these people were strange, because I grew up, you know, you see a nice looking woman, you draw fear, you know. That was a culture, because this was 90s dancehall time, you know. Big up. I tell Spraga Benz, when I talked to Spraga, I told him his music was my soundtrack, you know what I mean? And we don't have to go into some of the lyrics, but you know what I talk about. So the first time I'm seeing brethren exercise discipline is Rastafari brethren. And then the next part is that they kept talking about Haile Selassie, and I thought they were crazy, you know, because how this little man, you're giving him so much attention, you know, how that drop in, you know, this little Ethiopian. It happened that at the time I was working at the computer lab on campus, Slow Hall, Meridian Hall, big up all of the HU family around the creation. So I had access, you know, so I would be searching online during work. You know, I was work study student on campus. So I would be pulling up all of this, and it led me down this rabbit hole of Ethiopian history. Bam, we dropped on the Battle of Adwa, the African victory. You know, okay, so, you know, we realized, because I grew up in a Pan-African home, Marcus Garvey, but I didn't know about Adwa. I didn't know about the Solomonic dynasty. I tell people His Majesty is what led me to the Bible, because I thought the Bible was just some little storybook, and, you know, dash it away and didn't have any interest. But when I saw His Majesty now reading, I said, let me read this book. So I took one summer, I was working at Crampton Hall on campus, read the Bible from Genesis to Revelation in one summer, you know, day and night I read. And then I connected the dots with the Davidic covenant, Ethiopia being the only country that fulfilled this covenant that had kings that come from this lineage. We search every nation and say, if Ethiopia doesn't exist, then the Bible is a lie or it's foolishness. For the Bible or the biblical account to stand up to scrutiny, Ethiopia is that link. And then, you know, because I didn't trust Christianity, None at all. You know, I didn't have a distinction between Orthodox. I just know that they slaved the people, white Jesus, were born in that. You know what I mean? So when we see now that it was a Christian African nation that won the victory, you know, because it could have been the Ashanti, it could have been the Zulu, it could have been the Dogon, but it was this Solomonic dynasty. And history cannot be rewritten. We cannot erase these facts, you know. And then when we see that the foundation of African unity was set by this same dynasty, we see that story fulfilling. You know, I said there's something deeper here. So I started to, you know, chat to Nyabinghi. We had a Nyabinghi house here in DC. So I book up right into some of the Nyabinghi elders. I went straight into the Nyabinghi house. And I was, you know, greeted by legendary elders, Ras Pido, Ras Iris, you know, Irie Lion, Mama Bubbles, you know, Bongo Sheffan was there sometime, Bongo Tani would pass through. We had all these Nyabinghi elders from, you know, Bongo Wato, I was able to meet as well, you know. So Mama Faraika, you know, Nana Faraika, you know, as one of our elder sisters. And these were elders, Bongo Jack. These were elders that now shape I, and I was amazed by their historical recall. You know, they could sit down and tell you about facts after facts. And so the deeper I went into this research is the more that I saw that this was based on truth. And up to this day, everything those elders told me, I've literally watched. I became a man during that period, and I've watched, have children of my own, and watched everything they said come to pass as they said it would come to pass. Some of them didn't even live to see what they said come to pass. I've seen everything. The elders didn't miss one major point when talking about the legalization of the herb. The herb must be free, the healing of the nation. We live to see the sick and those afflicted petition for the legalization of the herb. They talk about the ital food. You know what I mean? We live now to see this vegan movement, plant-based, all of these things flourish around the earth. They talk about repatriation. We live to see beyond the return in Ghana. We live to see, you know, African Americans, black people from the UK, South America, all now starting to return home. We live to see these things in real time. So for Rastafari, took I from a course that I could have easily just been a corporate person in Babylon, you know, womanizing around the place, not having any direction, to someone who was able to identify a purpose, who was able to, you know, create history, you know, several times over, and still creating history, and allow I to have some impact in I life. Look at my beautiful wife who I've been with. I don't think I would have been faithful as a king man if I had not known about His Imperial Majesty and Empress Menen, and had that example to keep I discipline, because it's not easy out here, you know, when you're a productive man, because the woman them enough out here, I tell you. But the discipline that we're able to exercise, I see a laugh at that. You know it's true. The discipline I was able to exercise is all ascribed to His Imperial Majesty, and seeing that, okay, there's a way to accomplish, and it's bigger than just your own personal legacy. It's about the building of Africa, because the mission continues. We now have become His Imperial Majesty. I'm going to seal with this. His Majesty said when he was speaking of Yeshua, that with the sacrifice of Yeshua, the hearts of mankind became the temple of the Almighty. And when we look at I and I as Rastafari now, I and I hearts have become temple of His Imperial Majesty. We are called by His name, meaning that our task now is the completion of that established. The highest of Himself shall establish I and I. You understand? So He established the foundation. Is now I and I become the arms, the legs, the brain, to carry out this mission. Because again, He said, peace is not a is a becoming. And His final time in the sight of man, He took a militant stand for peace. So He denounced war against His own people to the extent that they call Him senile. The scepter shall not depart from Judah until the coming of Shiloh. Shiloh is peace on earth. He becomes peace on earth, taking this militant stance And we now stand as his children to continue the journey. So that is how it changed. I give thanks.
Just a quick word, and I'm taking it just a quick word, even on the previous topic. 1963, since it's human rights and the speech, that's the year of the Coral Garden massacre too. So that's some serious human rights to meditate on. Blessed love, that's all. There's Jama Chalwa there. Let's take off the camera for a moment, pardon.
Honorable Kailash.
Respect. True man. I know. Anyway, true.
Still mute.
I don't know. I don't know if you and the Honorable Freeze have a special relationship, but
I ain't changed. I think the mic mute, Kailash.
Okay, yeah, all right, I good. Yeah, I good there now. Read me?
Yeah.
All right, Rastafari. Yeah, well, yeah, man, I give thanks. And let's normally look at it like this: is when you come into Rastafari, Rastafari is basically the value is you coming and adding your intrinsic value. So I wouldn't say that Rastafari made me more disciplined or or any of these things. What I would say is that in my personal experience, I just always knew that I would have just be a Rastaman. So from the time I born, as far back as I can remember, I know I wanted to be a healer and a Rastaman. That's my glory, as far back as I could remember. So like, I always love the things of the divine. I never could drink rum. If I taste a rum, I might knock out or roll along someplace or some type of thing. So my journey was like, how I look at it is, man, when you come into the culture, as King Emmanuel does say, don't look for what Rasta can do for you, but what you could do for Rastafari. Because if it is that we really have to separate ourselves from, the God in the sky philosophy, remember just because Jesus coming soon, man. Jesus coming soon. and it's over what? Probably 2,000 years and so, and soon. So then it is critical that I the most glorious aspect is the human nature of His Imperial Majesty. So what really touched me is that it's a man, so when you read about the man having a broken knee and the man getting burned, and when you read the autobiography and the man swimming and almost drowned and barely made it to shore, and and then you see, well, all these things, they were done by a man. So the human nature of His Imperial Majesty, because people would say, well, how you worship a man? How you worship a man? But that's the point. Which other man, have done these things? So I think that I know that the humanity of His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie I, we have to really, even aside from all the supernatural attributes that we want to give the man, just the logical things that he went through, and so when I read these things, and then I try to superimpose that upon my own self as a man and say, well, right, within my own flesh, and bones and teeth and whatever fluid that go through my goodie, I say, what can I do? How can I add value, to this movement that we are in towards uplifting humanity? Critical, because His Imperial Majesty didn't only save Africa, he saved the world. So when we look at 1946, when we look at even the war with Mussolini, and then we understand Hitler. I think I was watching some movie. They just had a movie there. I think some kind of war thing, some gentleman something where they show like this secret English group of criminals going into Germany and bombing ship and stealing Nazi things and all them different aspects and things. As the Honorable Preciser could normally say, they cannot speak about Mussolini unless they speak about his Majesty. So no one knows about Mussolini. Why? Because if you speak of Mussolini, you must speak about the emperor, and they don't want to speak about the emperor, right? So the advent of the emperor and the fact that the emperor went forward, after 5 years in exile on the 5th of May, as we come into that celebration shortly, as a man, and as a man, not as a punk, the man fight all the way from the Sudan and come down all the way into Addis Ababa and reach there on the 5th of May. Which president in the time that we're talking about now, which prime minister, would take off their suit and then put a camouflage and walk through the jungle and fight and do these things there. So, if mosquitoes and snakes and crocodiles and lions and and all these different very human challenges, right? Which is no different than our own personal human challenges. Okay, so if we take out the supernatural and just focus on the natural, the logical strength of that man and level of commitment and discipline, and then we look within ourselves, because I see that within all of it that His Majesty said, like, it's we, it's I and I, have to look within ourselves and see how is it that we could build this new race, this new heaven and earth, So I wanted to say that because I think that just being grounded in the person of His Majesty is critical. Not even, we don't even have to go to the metaphysical or the spiritual aspect, them kind of high vibes. This have to be for secret chambers, because they have reasoning that you cannot reason with. They said that when we began to write history, that's when I and I as a race fell, as people of the human, the colored beings, the people with melanin. That's when we fell, when we begin to write things and pass things out to people and all them different aspects of things. So I think it's critical that we just glorify the human nature of His Imperial Majesty, what he was able to achieve, and then we look at ourselves, not what we know we could take out of Rastafari, but also what we could actually contribute towards Rastafari. I call that principle the mosquito principle, the parasitic principle. So many people come into groups and things like mosquitoes, parasites. They suck the blood and then they give you disease, malaria, dengue, Zika, all them different aspects of things. So I see that we've been blessed. We've been blessed, with this great ensample, right, of what a man can do, and then I also embrace the mortality of the man in that the physical aspect, that sense of the man, just to say that, just to bring these things there forward, into the fact that, as we say, well, death don't really exist, So we give thanks for His Imperial Majesty as man that came and fulfilled such great works. And my journey into coming into Rastafari, I always see myself, as what can I do? How am I going to establish this? How am I going to do this? And when I pray to the emperor, people say, "Well, you're a prisoner, man," Of course, I would bow down to my woman before I bow down to plenty. I mean, see greatness in your brethren, so you bow down to your brethren, because it's God in flesh. So definitely, Honorable, I see what is it that I and I can do, to uplift humanity as His Imperial Majesty have done, my Lord.
There is a something, and it really a segue forward in a reason where I want ask them, because there's often this big misconception of Haile Selassie. I really believe there's a major misconception of Haile Selassie, where once of it's Haile Selassie was a puppet, and is a dictator of such. So I really feel like say, and I don't just want to ask the question from that aspect, like address that in terms of the achievement and shining the light of Haile Selassie. But I want to also want to put in the part I to where naturally when you say you think of Hitler, you think of the followers of Hitler itself, and you think about what the followers of Hitler represent. You think about Mussolini, as they mentioned, the fascism and what the followers of Mussolini represent. But you look at Rastafari now, and you really see what Rastafari, Idrins and Sistrins represent in the scope of what the world is and how I and I really fit in within this puzzle of this world and the works carried out by Rastafari. So I feel like how dare them really address that and shine light towards people about Haile Selassie being an exemplary man, an exemplary human, as there is an exemplary leader of such, as opposed to the thought process of what a lot of people really come for. Because it's a knowledge thing, you know. I know it's a knowledge thing, so I really want them kind of emphasize on that.
Fire. I want to hear Honorable Priest Isaac because you look like you're ready. I want to hear Honorable Priest Isaac here.
Yeah,
You look like you're ready.
I don't want my turn. I didn't want the knife cut me at all. I just wanted to make sure, give thanks for opening the gates. Yeah, man, that's down my alley fully, because now even there is I'm sure the ones them come across the book. You see, even before I get to the book, you know, picture is worth 1,000 words, as they say, and all you have to do is just observe the movement of the emperor throughout the earth, and never has Haile Selassie gathered in any congregation amongst heads of states, even when all the heads of states that you can count are there, and he did not have the highest seat. You know, if he was in another man's land and there were other heads of states, he was the man directly next to whoever the president or whoever the king of the country is. You know, he would be the one being chaperoned by the head of state's wife, which, as you know, in once being, I love this word, but in Masonry, there's a lot of symbolism, you know, that is being expressed. And from you walking with the man wife, it's just a symbol of who you are. It's just like when you get the key to the city, you know. There's a book written by, what's his name now? The book is entitled The Confessions of an Economic Hitman by, I know I didn't know the book though, the name will come. And even outside of the book, just his interviews that the brother who, the author of the book, who was a former CIA agent and would have worked in many covert operations, specifically in Iran. He speaks a lot about in Iran, Nicaragua, most of the Central American countries. You know, he worked with the jackals, you know, as you know, how the governments of the so-called First World would have handled their diplomacy, as they would have funded their secret agents to go into these other countries who were not freeing up their resources, who were not, you know, puppets of them, and they would just topple people and put the puppets in charge and move on. That's basically how it went and how it goes, and that's really the vision for the future for these people here. So now, when you observe his writings, you would notice he speaks of all of the different countries that had to bow to the government of the first world countries of the USA. No mention of Ethiopia. Now let me show you something. I once did a program with a good brethren of mine. He's a Rastafari, but he has this different outlook. His name is Rasmike. Maybe some of you would have seen this video. And Rasmike is trying to tell me, as I've heard a few ones say, that Haile Selassie, you know what I mean, is Britain crown Haile Selassie, etc., etc., and is the title belong to them, and so forth, so forth. Now, in 1970s, I think it's 1970, the Shah of Iran at that time had this great event in the desert of Iran, where he crowned himself, listen to this, Shah and Shah, which means the King of Kings. And there's a documentary on this. The BBC did a documentary on this. You can see it on the internet. It's on YouTube. And he invited over 100 head of states to attend this ceremony where he would be crowned King of Kings. The King of Kings too, Haile Selassie, was also invited. And he was there. You will look at the footage, you see Haile Selassie moving with the wife of the Shah. So he's moving, I think they call it a sheikha, something like that. I think that's the term, which shows you again the diplomacy. Every head of state. Now, Queen Elizabeth wasn't there. According to the reporter, she wasn't there because she could not come to someone's event of such magnitude that was inferior to her. This is what the documentary said. But her husband, Prince Philip, was there. And all of the head of states, including him, came and had to kiss the Shah's hand, and Haile Selassie stood behind the Shah. While all the other heads of states would have passed and performed that in front of the Shah. Now, I'm just saying that to say, and one other thing before I even close up that, even in that documentary, the individual that handled the whole procedure for the guests that were coming in, he said in the documentary that they were only allowing one leader with 5 people in their entourage. So if you were the president or a prince or whatever, you could only come with 5 people. He said that an African leader, he didn't call the name, wanted 10 people, and that caused a big stir, and he had to go to the Shah, and they had to work it out, and then they gave him a place to fit his 10 people. He said after that, the emperor of Ethiopia came with a plane full of 75 people. Listen to what the man said. Wow, I said to myself, where am I going to put all of these people? But we had to find a place for the emperor. So just meditate on that. He's saying that no other head of state could have brought more than 5 people. They had to negotiate with the African king, whoever that was, with his 10 people. But when the emperor came in on Ethiopian Airways, he didn't even have to think twice. He had to find place for the emperor's 75. Anybody can go and watch the documentary. So I'm just showing with the puppet question, really. You know, it's obvious that Haile Selassie stood out, undeniable. Haile Selassie was there when the rocket went to the moon, you know. It's obvious at Kennedy's funeral, when you see the coffin for Kennedy, Haile Selassie is standing right next to President de Gaulle of France. Haile Selassie is in the front and center. He's the foremost and the most central person in front of the coffin of John F. Kennedy. So it's obvious that he was the most outstanding statesman at the time. And the reason why I brought in the Shah of Iran is because in the book Confessions of Perkins, the man name is Perkins, John Perkins. In the book The Confessions of the Economic Hitman, he speaks of the Shah of Iran more than anybody else, as if that is the major puppet of the CIA. And just to meditate that he crowned himself King of Kings. Now, the fact that they would have crowned him King of Kings, if the real King of Kings was a puppet, they wouldn't need to crown another King of Kings, because they already have a King of Kings. That's their puppet. But Haile Selassie was nobody puppet. Bless it down. Or is, not was, is nobody puppet, is. Present tense, please. Yes, Knife, chat them up now.
Yes, I am. You know that it's really one order against the other at the time in terms of global governance. See, and one just really understand that this all them international politics operate. You spread a lot of misinformation, and people accept misinformation you know. But I generally hold that you can't convince people about things, you know. Once I go really learn, and again, you have believers, I have people who are knowers, and Rastafari, and I believe Rastafari, I know. So someone's believe some things they may rather than seek out for self, you know, and I think that is where it has to be addressed. I'm not going to try to convince anyone about who Haile Selassie is. There's a thing where saying the work speak for itself, there's no need to interrupt. Everyone have a brain and can suss out things to themselves, man. If I want to choose to believe those things, it's because they make a conscious decision, and that is because ones have done on themselves as well, man. You know, it's not, I'm not what them call them, man, they will come for try to save some people and things, you know. I'm not an evangelist, I'm not a one who into that kind of thing. Self-discovery. See, self-awareness. You get information and you suss out for yourself. You never stop trying for learn. And you see, once I want to try to learn, the truth must come to you. You know, I know get myself caught into that discussion with ones who come up with those kind of things about being a tyrant. And so when ancient Kailash mentioned about a being as man, I said to myself, I always say to myself, when I have these stories about how Haile Selassie I feed in the land them these meat and things and the land them in place, I say, what? But if you have one land all of the White House, the whole security system locked down at the White House, everybody have so much land free all over the place, and what kind of people there? And it's not about Haile Selassie alone, it's not about all of them people there in that space. What that mean? Virgin, I don't get distracted by people here for you. I assure you that. I don't get distracted by anyone's. I'm not trying to save no one when I evangelize to no one. You know, everyone have to suss out things to themselves. You know, and if one honest to themselves, the truth will be revealed to you, man. Everyone know the truth, you know.
Yes, I want to jump in here. In terms of the puppet argument and the tyrant argument. In 1930, the coronation, it was also coinciding with the global depression, crash in the global markets. You know, people could say that there was fear that took hold of them. If you want to take that perspective, the Western world, you know, was uncertain. A black king on the throne. This was hailed by black peoples all over the world. You know, because contrary to popular belief, black people of the time were very globally conscious. If you read Marcus Garvey works, you will see how globally minded the black power movement was at that time. And now we're seeing scholarship. I saw your interview, Bald Head, with Floyd Jarvis and the early Rastafari presence in America, the Rastafarites, you know, from the early 1900s that were heightened up His Majesty even before the coronation. You know, we're finding out information about a young Rastafari sending money to the UNIA. We know about the Ford family that moved from you know, they were Bayesian UNIA members, Hebrew Israelites that moved to Ethiopia prior to the war, established the first co-ed school in Addis Ababa, and remained in Ethiopia even during the war. You know, and made a great contribution. They also wrote the anthem for the UNIA, the Ford family. So His Majesty Pan-African credential goes prior to his coronation. But if His Majesty was a puppet of the West, then there would have been no need for the Vatican to invade, led by, remember Mussolini was a puppet. You know, we have to talk about Pope Pius XI, Emperor Victor Emmanuel, representing the European royals. And this was to fulfill, and this came out, Mussolini said this, that they were planning, since their defeat at Adowa, the Italians had spent all of that time building up their forces to go and invade to make good their deal that they had made at the Berlin Conference. So had His Majesty been a puppet, there would have been no need for the Vatican to invade. And I say the Vatican because you can see the Catholic priest blessing the bombs, and you could see if you know the power structure at that time, the Vatican wielded tremendous power of the royal family. Mussolini was a puppet that was just the front man who had vainglorious aspirations. So if he was a puppet, that wouldn't have been necessary. Upon his exile in the UK, there were efforts to control him. He talks about it in his autobiography. He was offered large sums of money to give up Ethiopia as an Italian protectorate, which he rejected. Upon his return into Ethiopia, he also details how the British tried to control the country. People don't realize that England, after fighting with Ethiopia, and it was mostly their African troops that fought that final battle to oust the Italians, who were demoralized and defeated by the Ethiopian patriots that hounded them. They couldn't even hold. They were barely holding on to the cities. So even if they would have crumbled. So we can talk about that another time. But the UK tried to control Ethiopia. They did their best. His Majesty, one of the reasons His Majesty started going to America and to court American support was to ease off the British. So if he was a puppet, there would have been no need of this balancing of powers. Ethiopia refused to be a pawn in the Cold War. Remember that Russia built the dam at the port of Assab. So you had Russia working at the same time you had American working in the country. You had Israel working at the same time you had the Arab nations doing projects and working in the country. His Majesty was the champion of the non-aligned movement. So there was no country that could control or claim Ethiopia to be a puppet. Now, in terms of tyrant, which tyrant builds schools to educate the people and free them from the scourge of illiteracy? Which tyrant raises people from peasants to citizens? Which tyrant of his own volition gives a constitution limiting his own power when he could rule by decree, but seeks to transform the nation into a constitutional monarchy where people have a defined Bill of Rights and freedoms, where in 1955, which tyrant then goes to amend the first constitution to allow greater input of the people into the task of government? Which tyrant develops the country on every aspect? Ethiopia still is a leader on the African continent despite outside forces trying to pull it apart with tribalism. And one of the reasons is because how His Majesty formulated the country with the educational institutions, from military institution to avionics institution to agriculture, every facet of development His Majesty institutionalized and ensured that the various tribes would benefit from these institutions, which is why Ethiopia has not pulled itself apart as we see in other African countries, even though the tribal animosity is very deep-seated and goes back thousands of years. But His Majesty managed to do, remember, before His Majesty, there was no peaceful transitions of power in Ethiopia. It was war that usually marked the transition of power on the throne. So His Majesty really created, take a feudal government into a modern state within a generation. And again, Ethiopians to this day benefit from his foresight and the vision. So the evidence is not there to sustain the tyrant. Mark, there were propaganda that he stole money and put it into Swiss bank accounts that had been debunked. Big up Edward Ollendorf, wrote a book, The Two Zions. I am the reading Ras, by the way. I have to put that in there. The Two Zions by Edward Ollendorf, where he went to Switzerland to look in the banks to find this money. There was no hidden bank accounts. And in fact, they found that His Majesty invested massive sums of his own family personal fortune into the development of Ethiopia, and encourage the other in the nobility to do so as well. There's so much that we could go on and on about His Majesty work, but as Knife said, the work speaks for itself. And one of I and I life work is to really bring this to the people in the written form. And it's very important. Most people who are critiques of His Majesty are surface. And I book up enough of them on your platform too, Junior. When I look in the comments under the video, when I come on the platform, they're there. And when you challenge them with facts, they just bring back the same talking points. So as my brother said, these ones are convinced already in their assertion about who His Majesty is. And none of us on this panel are evangelists or seeking to convert. We are just joyful to come together in this time to do the work of His Majesty. And the world is going to see who His Majesty is in this time, because as Bob Marley said, now we're going to find out who is the real revolutionary. So give thanks.
Honorable Kailash, I'm not sure if you have something to say on this topic, because I have one last topic I want to bring up for the reason.
You want me to say something, you saying, or you want to go to the other topic?
No, if you have something to say, please share.
Well, I mean, this is the first platform where I talk things Rastafari, with people and things. And there's more focus on my, my herbs and, healing and these type of things, because as the Honorable Professor say, I mean, one salvation is the most sacred and the most expensive, most precious. It's priceless, So I don't normally discuss the person of His Majesty with people just like that. You have to deserve that. You have to earn that privilege just for me to have a reasoning with you about His Majesty. Far less, answering a question about puppet and them type of things. Right? That's why they have man like the Honorable and Priest Isaac, because, we have different weapons for different wars, specifically, and yeah, I find that, this is more like something secretive and private, Rastafari, just to be, it's not a club, it's even like to open, you have to work your way through and prove yourself worthy, even to hear certain type of things, and the fact that I mean, for example, it's not member of the core principle of examples and principles. It's just His Majesty is just an example of the underlying principle of Black excellence. So whenever you could just look at that principle and then look at all the examples of Black excellence and see what they say about them. Yeah, so them things there, and even as for in the healing perspective, I just try to avoid them things. I won't go in a comment and try to that's to have your cortisol for right. Them people that's what you call witchcraft, Witchcraft is that's your witchcraft and and white magic, them type of things there just to distract it, and have argument and thing, and then you talk for hours and yeah. So for me, I rather sit down and all the knowledge that they are reading and thing. If my children, honorable, yeah man, the reading man, yeah man, and I love that. And which I see is the critical thing, because our gems, our precious material that we have, that we're trying to give pearls to swines and diamonds to dogs. Among our own self, we have that responsibility to actually fortify our own armies. From epigenetics, from the sperm that come from our testicles, to ensure that we have systems in place to actually fortify them. Sometimes when I look at my children, and I see how brilliant they are, I just feel sad sometimes, even though if I know it's cortisol and stress that, that they don't have that direct access to Precise Isaac and the Iron Professor Knife and thing, so we really have to organize ourselves in a manner that we could soak in one another's brilliance, you know, and then add that collective value. Because I would say in closing that specific question is, I believe in the fruit tree principle. You know, a vegetable like lettuce will take about 6 weeks. You plant the seed today, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, you could eat that. Yet if you plant a mami or a black sapote, that'll take you about 5, 6, 7 years. The lychee might even take you almost a decade. You know, yet still you plant the seed today. So if you plant the seed today, a decade will come. So if you 40 in June, JR, you know that in a decade you'll be 50. All right. So if you plant a lychee tree today, when you're 50, you'll be eating lychees from your tree. So the principle of having that type of a long-term perspective, understanding that we have to plant the seeds now and water and nurture them 5, 6, 7, 8 years, not just abracadabra, kazam, right away things, but have that kind of long-term perspective that is critical. So I would more focus on to see how I could get my children to sit at their and feet, you know, and organize whatever way that we could organize. That I could probably send one over there and send one, you know, and them type of thing, you know, and see how, you know, I see that they would be more deserving just to reinforce their knowledge in what his Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie represents to I and I. Give thanks.
And the last question I want to put out there for everyone is, um, we me and Pre spoke about this in Ghana. He actually answered this one, but um, what is it about Rastafari that's so magnetic and so attractive to people across the world? a knife first.
Eh, Rastafari is one. See, Rastafari is, and simple mean that beings feel most happy when they accept themselves, and you say a living manifestation of that. Oh, you have self-acceptance, and so when you check it, I used to ask the same question: how is it that a Chinese, a Japanese, a Indian, how them gravitate towards annihility as Rastafari? But again, when you go and start going at the ancients and the people, as some people in them ancient society who live the same way, have the same kind of iris towards earth and creation and towards people. Who's from those people time is dear ancients to that. So you find why the Rasta man reminds all of those other ones of an anciency within themselves, which them can express today, within the name of Rastafari. But you can see it, and if you check history now, the documentation support it. See? Some of them Greek guys, they write, say, Ethiopia had two daughters, which is, one is called Sind, what them call India today, and Kemet, what them call Egypt, are the two daughters of Ethiopia, and information spread through Egypt and come through different spaces in Africa, while go through India and go through Asia. If you look at the stories of those people, very, very similar. The words, very similar. It's like even one that talk about a Kabbalah and the Hebrew people use. I have the Kabbah where the Muslim use. You have the principle of Abba, which is, and that's, remember, that is the universal coming together with the individual being. So all of these things are there, which shows you the anciency and the oneness within people. It's as we say that you have many parts of the mountain top, but once you're there, the view is still the same. So you go through all of the ancient people, you book up on the same kind of live. And Rastafari, I think, represents that in the West in particular. So ones that gravitate to that that part of himself. Because he's at a part of self-discovery. Rastafari give it that space.
Honorable Priest Isaac.
Blessed, yes. Give thanks. So the question is, why are the people of the world attracted to Rastafari? Okay, interested. Well, as I was saying earlier, Rastafari is so dynamic. Okay, for example, I would believe that question is more so directed to not Rastafari, but Rastafari, the movement. I think that's weird. Because again, now you have to even look at the different Rastafari. Now, I think depending on the age and the time, you may have a different level of attraction towards this thing here. Because once, Marcus Messiah Garvey speaks about black people checking themselves when they're back against the wall. And the thing is, people tend to be motivated more when they're put in a position where they need to get out of a hole, for example. So you have people rising up, following maybe charismatic characters like Martin Luther King or even Elijah Muhammad, because the day and time was calling for that. The people was looking for someone. The pressure was on their back. Now today is a bit different. That's why even youth, believe it or not, youth don't really gravitate to Rastafari in the same way as the youth in, let's just say, the early days would have gravitated. Yes, there's still a level of coming to it, but on a different level altogether. So there was a time when, out of black power, where there was a lot of oppression on black people in general, and ones really saw the Emperor Haile Selassie I for who he is, standing up as the defender of the faith. And we can't forget that even from the time of Menelik II, that whole Pan-Africanist spirit was already on the move. You have those, even like myself, who were literally seeking for the real God. Me personally, it wasn't even, and this kind of taking me back to the other question, it wasn't anything about Africa or anything. No smoking herb, none of that. It was sincerely trying to really understand who this God figure is clearly. And it came straight to Haile Selassie I. So there are different reasons why ones are attracted on that level, because it's, the theological truth and the intelligence behind it, the connection. So there are those that would be well taken up by a debate between two races, or maybe a race and a Christian, and that attracts them, that literally attracts them. I say, wow, the race have a good point, And then now there are those who are attracted to the literal culture. Because what Rastafari is now, Rastafari is an ancient African tradition that, in a sense, rise up in the ghetto. It kind of come to meet us where we were at the time. So even like today, I mentioned the Bible. It's hard to try to bring anyone to this faith by just a Bible thing. To me, I observe we live in a generation now where when the youths observe you doing something, and hey, this look like a movement that carrying us somewhere, they're quicker to gravitate. It's not about trying to preach to them like old preacher and say, man, look, come, let me show you what Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John says. So Rastafari, to me, there are different aspects about it that attracts different types of people, especially depending on the time or the age that we are in. So even today now, you would see that is why Rastafari is expressed differently. Who are you to tell a young sister with her little pretty saloon locks and maybe a short jeans and her little Haile Selassie badge on the side? Who are you to tell her she ain't Rasta because maybe she didn't really dress like my baby I or my Ashanti or, you know? I mean, different time, different attraction, you know, different meditation. But you see, this is why knowledge is important, and the right knowledge, you know, because as I said earlier, that's what comes with the leadership: proper guidance, proper educational structure, you know, a kingdom growing. And even in this time when we have access to the internet and to the World Wide Web, even on that level, for those who can adapt to that level, we really, as a people, as Rastafari, should have more educational structures in order for those who even want to be a part of it. You know, and just in closing, for example, um, many ones who may decide, hey, I want to be a Rastafari. Because that's another thing. They have all type of different aspects of Rastafari. They're those that don't associate with any mansion or whatever the case is. But as a movement, as an international movement going forward, many of us, we're not even set in a way where an individual can come and register online and get a tutorial. And we have an environment where just a quick word, something just came to me and I don't want to lose it because, you know, this is important. A person like me, I always considered coming into Rastafari. I came in at like the tail end of an experience. When I said Rastafari, me personally, I mean, that was a problem for the parents. You know, I was one of those who had to leave home and go other places to live. In fact, the couple of years that I had to stay in the hills, those couple of years strengthened me so much. You know, where I learned to cook on an outside fire. Well, I already knew how to do that because I was a scout, you know, living literally under the stars. Now, that's the tradition that the elders went through, but it was a bit more heavier than what I went through. But after my generation, a man say Rastafari, nobody kicking them out of the house anymore. That don't happen today. I don't think there's anybody that would say, hey, Rastafari, and their mother tell them to leave home. If it happens, it's very few and far between. And the point I'm making here is that those of us that were kicked out of the nest as such, and those who are listening who understand what I'm saying, we had to live a certain life, even if it's for a year, 2 years, some for 10 years, which would have been such a massive strength. Those 2 years for me were like two of the best years. I wouldn't say the best years, but two of the best years of my life, where without electricity, just living the life within the hills. Now, what I'm saying, no one need to get kicked out of the hill, the nest for that. We as Rastafari should have a university where when you take up this tradition, you literally go and live in the hills for a year. I mean, not we send you to wild hills, you know, it's well established.
Like a
It's
rites
well
of passage
designed.
vibe, right? Like a rites of passage vibe, but an
Yes,
organized rites of
perfect,
passage vibe.
perfect. And you hit it the nail on the head, and I will leave it at that. And that is a strength going forward. So you don't have to get forced into that. Man, even your eyes, you see better when you come out of that. Look, just this last thing, I don't want to take up. Let me just show you my point. I remember, right, the first time I quote unquote returned to my father's house. I never forget this experience cooking on a gas stove. I never forget cooking idle sauce on a gas stove. I tell Priest Kailash this story. I know you know. When I taste the sauce, I taste the petroleum gas. I never forget that. And the point I'm making is that all of us who cook on gas stove, we're still tasting that gas. But you see, we're so numb to it, we're not aware. I was away from gas stove for 2 years. And the first time I returned to that, I taste the gas. That's just to show you how important that rites of passage is. I know we can go on and on. We can write an encyclopedia on these subject areas, but blessed Lord, give thanks.
Yeah, I love that sound because we've been talking about that on the Lion Voice network in terms of the rites of passage program and staying in the hills and having a program where the youths them, you know, when you become a man, you go into the hills, you learn how to build your house, you learn how to light a fire, cook ital, these things. So these are things that the panelists we're gonna have to come together and work on these things because it's solution. But to answer the question, Rastafari, why is it attractive? I would say one of the reasons because Rastafari vibration is positive, you know, and yet still militant. One of the things I was marvel is everywhere His Majesty go, no matter how, you know, colonizer, whoever he was talking to, he finds something positive to establish the bridge of the relationship because you know it's not about him and that individual, it's about creating a bridge between Ethiopia and the people of that nation, irrespective of who the representative is. So this principle of militant positivity, you know, people are attracted to the positive. And I think that Rastafari embody that positivity. Also, we have to big up our creatives. I'm a creative, I'm an artist. Our singers and our players of instrument have, you know, triumphed or trumpeted Rastafari message around the world. And music is a thing that you feel it, you know. You can't fake music. You can't lie with music. Either you feel it or you don't feel it. And the singers and the players of instruments. So even though you can see different Pan-African movements, you know, they have organized intake in terms of how they bring people into the movement. Rastafari has spread to the millions with no proselytization, no organized recruitment system, in a large part because of the singers and the players of instruments and people feeling that connection with the word and the sound and the vibration, again, positive. So Rastafari creatives, you know, have a big, and it's not just the music, it's the craft, it's, you know, the Rastafari belts, it's the tams, it's the red, gold, and green, which, you know, if you study colors and things, it creates a psychological happiness within you. These are colors, you know, of the rainbow that create this vibrancy. So no matter where you go on the earth as a Rastafari, you're going to get people that hail you. You're going to get people that salute you. You know, we can walk in the ghetto, the worst ghetto, and we feel comfortable because the thugs are going to hail us. We can go into the highest court. We can go into, you know, Tapanari settings and the people are going to hail us. This is in the modern time, you know. So Rastafari have a magnetism that translates from the grassroots to the highest of the luxury because of this positive vibration. And when you embody the king, when you become Rastafari, then you share in the glory because the glory has been established. The glory is there, you know, it's in the earth, it's undeniable. So that is really what attracts. In our heavens, each of these panelists, if you could look in their heavens or in their thoughts, you would see so much glorification and things. I think the challenge we have as Rastafari, we have not manifested that physically in institutions that you can touch and feel, in places as Priest Isaac said, that we can send the youths to schools, healthcare centers that have solar panel and lots of sunlight and plants everywhere instead of these sterile type of health environments. Priest Kailash build that. You know, we have Habisha, I big up my brethren, Bingishan, in Ghana, where we have the Kazi Institute. We're starting now in this new phase to start to build infrastructure that matches that positive vibration, this alternative to Babylon. And that is the task of our generation. Our elders went through brutality. They went through hardship. They endured, you know, being killed, being have their locks cut with broken bottles, humiliated, but they established an undeniable reputation for I and I around the earth. When I go into an African village and the youths them run up to I and say, "Ja, Rastafari," and can't speak English. It's not because of anything I did personally. Is the essence we established by those who came before I. Now, our generation, which we are the generation that seek the face of the Most High. I was born in 77 after His Majesty. There was no Majesty for sip on TV. They tried to bury the legacy, them slander, them hide him from the textbook. All of these things. We now are the generation that seek Him. And now our duty is to build the institutions that will carry the movement to the next level, because as Priest Isaac said, the youths of today are not coming like they used to. When I interview elders, most of them ras up in their teens, 15, 13, 14. We're not seeing that now because we have internet, we have TikTok. The youths, their mind captivated in other places. So now we have to create the institutions, the content. Where is the Battle of Adwa cartoon feature film? Where is the feature films and the movie them for our youths them, so that our youths can have all of the fun and the accoutrements of modern creativity without getting the programming from a white supremacist framework, or a Greco-Roman framework. This is the task of our generation. This is what confronts I, and as Honorable Priest Isaac, Priest Kailash, Ras Knife say, these things are happening, and I never knew TV. I want to big you up because facilitating even this reasoning is part of this uprising that is occurring right now. And I tell everyone, 10 years from now, come check with Rastafari. Our glory days are ahead of us. Don't look upon the 70s like 70s are the glory days. What you are going to see moving forward will blow the mind of creation, because it's in us. It's now the time to bring it and make it manifest. Give thanks.
Yes, my Lord, give thanks. Well, as you know, 1946, and then we began with 1946 and 1963, which is 63. 46 from 63. I mean, you see, they put in numbers back to front and, shift the thing around. And we had 27, the 2 sevens. As you say, you were born in 77. I was born in 77 also. The 2-7 clash. But I am that man, Yeah. So, so, and the 2 and the 7 is still the 9. So attractiveness is just attractive, you're attractive. We are attractive. The Rasta man is like the epitome of what a man's supposed to be, Yeah. So you're attractive, So the Rasta man is an attractive man. No, isn't it just that simple? What attracts you, you're Rasta man, you're just attractive. Because you highlight manhood, you highlight the true nature of just being a man, of what it is, that kind of instinct and survival, and and there's a chorus that goes, don't you know we have a net, we go catch all the high and the noble, don't you know? So Rastafari does catch the high and the noble. So that's why I'm saying that it is not really a thing whereby, you're trying to, grab people. If you look at it, that the best of the family is Rastafari, So if you have any family that you have, the brightest and the most brilliant and, of that family, they try. Don't you know when I see you go and put yourself as bald head now and you're making, and why you do that? I got to the beard man. Right, so yeah, man, is it the high and the noble, because so Rastafari has trapped the high and the noble, so it is not about just attracting and evangelizing or so it's like an all-star team, and Rastafari represents righteousness, the R, so there is no other set of people that they will hold accountable to righteousness, except Rastafari. So they won't tell a Christian, oh, well, you're a Christian and then you're drinking rum. Oh, you're a Christian and you're cursing. But if you're a Rasta man, you're going, well, but you're a Rasta man, you are cursing. But a Rasta, you are not supposed to do this. Or Rasta, you are not supposed to do that. So we have Rastafari has become the standard to righteousness. You know, that standard that people look up to, the conscience of the world. So we have become the new race, as His Imperial Majesty, you know, have stated. And you know, and we are the high and the noble, you know, and naturally, people will be attracted to that. So that's another element of everything that is happening. So definitely, I do give thanks for life and a mighty life given. I give thanks for this divine opportunity, as you know, I hardly get the opportunity to reason about things of Farai, you know, and I feel a high level of prestige and honor to be around my brotherly scholars that have spent so much time and energy, you know, in the historical realms of Rastafari. I could defend myself on that, you know, for my own little self, but I must say I give thanks for Honorable Priest Isaac, you know, for all the studies and all the works that you've done just on deciphering and all these different aspects in your fields when it comes to the teaching of just Rastafari and what it actually stands for. And even in these realms, you know, when I want some economic help, you know, and I want some, you know, some guidance on things of money and things on structure and organization and business, you know, I will quickly jump to, you know, Kadamawi Knife, you know, for any assistance, you know. And right now I've met another brother, you know, that born the same year with me, you know, 1977, you know, so definitely, you know, I'll be looking towards the eye for some guidance in your level of expertise. And you know, I've had to become many things, you know, just because I've had to become many things. You know, I would have loved to focus on my area of expertise, you know, and then be able to be guided appropriately by the other leaders in whatever fields that they are, you know. And I was telling a set of young people today that the mere fact that someone takes the time out to critique you, to criticize you, you should be thankful that someone actually took the time to critique you. And you know, in academia, they call it peer review, you know, which is basically the scientific process. So if you operate within that principle, you don't get offended by critique. You know, you understand that someone actually care enough to highlight something about what you're doing that you could actually, you know, better, or you could, you know, whatever it is, you know. So even if it's gossip, the worst gossip that you could think about, even that gossip might have a little 0.001% of truth. All right. So it is critical that, as a critical critic, that, you know, just that the word I just want to resonate is that high level of, you know, just critique and just people that just to critique one another. And when people might think it's discord, this is science, you know. So as gods within the realms of God, you know, it is very naive to expect that you're going to be sitting down among lions and everyone is going to be blah, 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 like sheep and everyone just following. So there is definitely going to be that reality of, you know, the gods in the room, you know. But having learned from academia, as Marcus Garvey say, we have no choice but to learn from the white man, you know, in the whole whatever academic process that they have created in this time that we are. We could go and say it still came from Africa, but whatever. The white world and the whole system of peer review and all these different things that they are doing, you know, within our own self, understanding that we could review and we could critique one another, right? And seeing the importance of that, because that is what that makes us better. That's what that reinforces and help us to stand firm on our foundation. So Give thanks for my beloved brothers. Give thanks for that divine moment again, and just give thanks for the opportunity, to sit down and talk of things of Rastafari, which I have not done probably in such a public forum for probably over 2 decades, and give thanks for I Never Knew TV for giving me that privilege also.
And we give thanks for everyone too, because I'm truly honored and humbled to have all you brethren here sharing your wisdom and sharing your time. 'Cause I know everybody busy still, so I truly give thanks for this experience to sit here and take in, because I'm a student same way. You get what I'm saying? So we here taking in the information, and we're truly grateful. Words can't express the gratitude I have for this experience to be reasoning with you in this collective. So we give thanks same way. We give thanks for everyone tuned in and streamed in, and truly appreciate.
Yeah. And I want to tell you, say, really and truly, say everything really connect itself to same way, because I start think about a Maya Angelou's speech where say, what should I say, it's not what everybody might forget what you've said or what you've done, but they never forget how you made them feel. And I feel like say when it comes to Rastafari works, at the same type of concept I apply where the feelings where you get and the feelings where we kind of carry forward. Because as a youth, same way, so and I come to far right, with certain elders and the connection that we have with the elders, them and the lessons them we will learn in between that and the feelings. Because people overlook feelings here and there all the time, and I understand and I overstand the feelings is that thing where really bring it towards yourself, because if you don't really overstand feelings, you're not going to overstand anything at all. The feelings itself where you get from an ancient really I bring the energy there and I transfer the energy there towards you. That can determine the direction where you go. And if the feelings come off wrong towards them as a youth, and it continuously coming off wrong towards you as a youth, then you gotta rub the wrong direction. But when it comes to Rastafari, the uniqueness of Rastafari come with, and the feelings, the authentic feelings. It's not a feelings where we have no GMO in it, and a feelings where clog up with no whole heap of canola oil. It's a feelings where it just natural, and it just make you know so you are chad forward on the right path. Yeah. And it cool and airy and die them know so it's a revolutionary work I get done, and it just straightforward to the point. It now bring you over yes and over yes so make you feel like say you're misguided. But the feelings will come with the thing. Martin plan I even tell you to see him tell you say the earth strangest man at the Rasta man same way. So you see the message them I connect from all different angles and really come forward to come full circle to the message that we are reason about.
Not serious thing, and once again, we give thanks for the reasoning, and we give thanks for everyone tuned in.
Can I just quickly say that we want to welcome everyone to the Lion Voice Network. I'm building a independent, non-aligned Rastafari media platform. I want to send maximum respect. I was inspired by Honorable Priest Isaac, ones like Ija Star, who I see have been on YouTube for years, just relentlessly being consistent with the message. So I also adding to that, and realizing with my work as an entertainment attorney, realizing working in the creative industry, how important it is to own platforms and to own our narrative. And so I want to big up I Never Knew TV. The item might have seen some of our interviews on I Never Knew TV as well. I want to big up Junior, because a brethren will really open his platform and support knowledge in terms of marketing, and the brethren is an open book. So I just want to salute the I Junior, Autarchii, who these brethren are living the Pan-African ideal in terms of just being free and wanting to see everyone rise, so that we can be stronger and we can have our own ecosystem. We don't have to depend on Babylon ecosystem. So come and welcome to the Lion Voice Network on YouTube. Come on and join us. We have Rastafari content, Pan-African content, same way. We reason with the races that you don't really get to see. Dr. Knife has been on the platform. Autarchii is soon reach on there too. and my fellow panelists, we pray we see them as well. So I just wanted to put that because I can't come on the big I never knew TV. I'm not talk about my little platform, Junior. You know what?
Is that
Yeah, man. Give thanks.
yeah.